Hey guys, this is your girl Lira, and you're listening to Self-Reflection Podcast. Thank you guys for coming to Self-Reflection Podcast. I feel so rough right now. I haven't been in a studio in about a month and a half or so, maybe even longer. And I am super excited to be back recording podcast episode because this is my place of peace when I come to the studio. Nothing else matters, right? This is a place where I come and I have incredible conversations. I have uplifting conversations. I have motivational conversations, and I get to talk to one of the coolest people in the entire world. So we are back to Self-Reflection Podcast. And, before we get into our podcast episode and me introducing our guests, I just want to say thank you to everyone that participate in AfroFest. AfroFest was a huge success this year. I'm extremely grateful for all of you. I'm extremely grateful for the team that helped me put AfroFest together. And also, I want to thank every single person that showed up to AfroFest this year. It meant so much to me to see that room with a lot of people just excited, people getting on the dance floor, dancing while the artists were performing. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you for the encouragement. And we are going to get into our podcast episode for today. Today, we are going to be talking to D.B. Bedford. And, before we get into our conversation with DB, can you please let our family here on Self-Reflection Podcast know who you are? And then maybe we could talk about how we actually met as well.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. So thanks for having me. So my name is D.B. Bedford, and I am a chief behavioral strategist for our agency called EI 365.
Mm-hmm.
My name is D.B. Bedford, and I am a chief behavioral strategist for our agency called EI 360. And basically what I do is I travel around to companies and organizations, and we help them work through what they call workplace incivility, AKA people acting up at work, right? We have found that in the work environment, it's hardly ever the skill that impedes performance. It's usually behavioral issues that go unresolved. So I've coined a framework or a phrase called Civility Intelligence, and that is what we leverage to help leaders and their teams optimize their performance by implementing what we call a behavioral risk management system.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us on Self-Reflection Podcast. It is actually an honor for me to be sitting across from you and having this conversation. You and I met at a workshop that you were hosting, and I walked in there, and I've never heard of incivility, the word you said, and also some of the things that you were bringing up, which I think we're going to talk about later on in our conversation, which is the 4 characteristics of behavior. So when I heard all of those things, I thought your mission and your purpose and what you're doing with your workshop aligns truly with Self-Reflection Podcast. And also, I thought that in the times that we're in right now, this might be the perfect conversation for us to have in our society. So thank you again for joining me on Self-Reflection Podcast.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for answering the call by recognizing that there was an alignment. You could have just recognized it and not said anything.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that you made sure that we knew that we need to be connected is what got us here.
Absolutely. So we're going to get right into your book, right? It says Black Intelligence, a different kind of smart. Can you tell us a little bit more about the title? Why did you title your book this way?
Okay. Yeah, good question. So I published that book around the George Floyd incident. At that time, I was teaching emotional intelligence at the time.
Yeah.
And the title stemmed from me realizing that just being a Black person in America, that we don't necessarily, and especially as a Black man in America, I don't get the same opportunities to be as expressive as I would like to be in certain situations because it amplifies and usually takes a quantum leap into destruction as our counterparts.
Hmm.
And I started just looking around. I was looking at the George Floyd incident. I was looking at the uprising and started having a lot of reflection just about how much I have to be very thoughtful
Yeah.
in public. For me, a lot of my incidents come for some reason at the airport, where people like to cut in front of you in line or just, not recognize you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets kind of frustrating. And so Black Intelligence was like, I feel like I need to just speak on emotional intelligence, but specifically to the culture could ring the alarm that no matter how unfair we might think it might be, no matter how and unjust are, we still have responsibility in terms of how we conduct ourselves
Yeah.
in order to get the best outcome. So, but I knew it wasn't just about me. So I interviewed a handful of folks for that book. And so that book is filled with not just my perspective,
Hmm.
but the perspective of Black men and women with their experiences of what it feels like to be Black in America.
Yeah, I know you grew up in Oakland.
Hmm.
So growing up in Oakland where it's Black people, the majority of people here is colored people, right? How did that shape your perception on how you viewed the world and how you saw intelligence?
Yeah, so I grew up in East Oakland in an area called Brookfield. And to be honest with you, I didn't know the difference until I began to mature.
Mm.
While I was in the heart of it, I was probably more emotionally ignorant than most, right? Because the environment that we grew up in and we created for ourselves, conflict equaled violence. There
Yeah.
was no in between,
Yeah.
right? In fact, if you did not respond in a violent manner, it caused more violence
Yeah.
because people would think you were weak. They think you were a sucker or a punk. And so if you had any type of confrontation and you didn't handle it with fisticuffs, then it went against you. So it was a programming,
Mm.
that made me move like that. But as I grew, after you see enough death, you go to jail enough times, you watch people lose their leg or end up with a colostomy bag or,
Mm.
lose an eye. It almost feels like, how vets come back from war?
Yeah.
It starts to feel like that in the hood after a while. And so you realize that there has to be more. And the more I grew, the more I started realizing that one of the biggest common denominators of our own self-destruction was overreacting in moments and making decisions. And so I have this school of thought that when emotions are high, logic tends to be the lowest. And so I really believe when I'm watching people make poor decisions, I'm looking for the behavior and the emotion behind it. And no matter which way I look, time and time again, I see that they don't get the most favorable outcome. So growing up in Oakland, the contrast was being able to be on the side of the perpetuator of
Hmm.
violence and wrongdoing and being overly angry. And then when I had a chance to zoom out, I can look back and see a clear difference. So that's why I believe that the work that I do is super important.
Absolutely. We're going to get right back into that thought. Thank you guys so much for joining me on Self Reflection Podcast. I hope that you guys are enjoying this conversation so far. If you have yet to subscribe to Self Reflection Podcast, please go ahead and hit that subscription button. I greatly appreciate it as we look to grow our community here. Also, I want you to go ahead and share this conversation with one other person that you feel like might benefit from this conversation that we're talking about today, especially if you are a Black or brown boy or girl, because I feel like what DB is talking about today is about emotional intelligence. And I feel like this is something that we miss growing up as young children. So if you're watching this conversation and you know someone that overreact, or you feel like this conversation might benefit somebody in your life, please go ahead and share this conversation with them. I'll greatly appreciate it. Let's get back into our podcast episode about how, um, you know, when you were in Oakland and when you were growing up, you didn't really understand intelligence, right? How do we begin to, I know this is the work that you're doing, but how do we continue to bring this inside the community to our young boys and girls so that they take a different path?
Good question. So in today's time, I've just launched a movement called Be Civil, right? Uh, to shorten it, to make it easy to digest, that we have to get to the space where we just practice being civil.
Yeah.
Civility is the key, showing respect and being courteous to one another, no matter, right, how challenging or how tense the situation is. The mindset, specifically in our culture, as soon as there is tension or conflict, right, we think we need to cause harm, whether it's physically, right, or mentally.
Yeah.
We think that there's something we should do about that instead of taking the positioning of to see what's behind that, right? And so I think by people joining, being part of the Be Civil movement and adopting the language, now I use the term civility intelligence because it's going to take a thoughtful process when you are emotionally charged to make and conduct yourself in a logical manner. And most people are challenged with that because they don't know how to identify the things that set them off in the first place. So my recent book that I just published is called 11 Behaviors of Disrespect Hidden in Plain Sight. Because in this work that I've been doing every day for the last 10 years, and the thousands of people that I talk to, the most common word that people refer to is when they feel like they're disrespected. But if you ask people, well, what is it that was disrespectful? It feels like a catch-all phrase. They can't say in the moment what was the thing that was disrespectful. What they do know, they just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Right? They know that it felt a certain kind of way, but they don't have an opportunity. They don't know how to articulate it. So my goal and my objective is creating a movement around people that will set what we call civility intelligence as their standard of behavior. They would adopt the language and they would practice in emotionally charged situations how to take the more civil approach. And I know it's challenging because most of the time you won't like it, you won't agree with it, and you won't understand it. And so that is the thing that people have to skill build through to get the best outcome on the other side.
Yeah. And how can people begin to identify the underlying emotion that allows them to charge instead of being civil?
It's a good question. So we have this concept we call your internal software. And it's a school of thought around, we know software as a tech term, but in our phones, right, which is a piece of software, we all have apps, right? And so it's a little word play on, there are 3 apps, we call them emotional apps, that are running right now to your listeners who are listening in our conversation right now. You're listening and I'm listening to you through my beliefs, my values, and my life experiences. And as long as what you and I say align with each other's beliefs, values, and experiences, the conversation flows well. But if I start saying things that buck up against belief of yours, the trajectory of the conversation changes. Light example, say if you don't use profanity. You grew up in a household that did not use profanity. But I grew up in one that all they did was use profanity because it was a way of expressive.
Yeah.
And so in this conversation, I start dropping words of profanity. Well, no matter how cool you think I am, every curse word bucks up against your belief system, it starts to change the way we experience it. And I don't even know it. And so when you ask the how is us being mindful of what our beliefs are, what our values, and what our our life experiences, and being honest, are we operating on old beliefs, outdated values, and past life experiences in present moment? Because that was where a lot of triggers come from, because people are on autopilot with beliefs that were downloaded to them years ago, might not even be relevant today, but they're responding from that. So a high level of self-awareness, that's the same as self-reflection, or they're in the same family. Self-awareness is making sure you always know your mood, your attitude, and your energy. So having a high level of self-awareness and self-reflection would be the first step.
Yeah. And what are some tools, friends and family that are listening, what are some tools, practical tools that they could start to use today to build that self-awareness for themselves?
Oh, good question. Well, one, don't just look at self-awareness as just a word to say. Self-awareness is knowing, being consciously connected to your mood, how you feel, to your attitude, what are you thinking about, right? Your feelings, and your energy, right? That what happens when you make yourself present in a room or a conversation, what type of energy emotes up off of you? So starting with self-awareness, because if I know how I feel, if I feel good, I flow good. If I'm not feeling good, I should be aware of that so I can be mindful that my patience might be a little shorter, my processing might be a little static, but most people don't take the time to do that, so they get caught off guard and they overreact. And the second thing I would say we would rock these together. So when you wake up in the morning, make sure you stay connected to your self-awareness. And then I would say throughout the day, in order to manage your reactions to everything, remember this simple but powerful term. Always take a purposeful pause before you engage in any conversation. Why do you want to take a purposeful pause? Because you want to be intentional about putting space in between your responses, so you always allow logic to be in line with your emotions. And I think those two alone are game changers.
Yeah.
Right? And so even if people feel like they might do it, if you don't name it, you can't navigate it.
Yeah.
And you cannot measure, right? You cannot manage what you're not willing to measure. So the first thing we like to do is to get people to say it. Say the thing, right? Say what you're doing, because this work can feel a little intangible, right? Because we can't just pull it off the shelf, right? But when the thing happens, right, when you have that conflict, when you have that level of disappointment, it just all shows up at once.
Correct.
And then you don't know where to start. So I would say start with intention and do the preventative work by being committed to self-awareness and a purposeful pause.
Oh, thank you so much. Why this work? Why did you decide to do this? Because this is a work that people like Tony, what's his name? Robbins are doing, Mel Robbins, Brene Brown, right? Why did you decide to go down this path? Because I think more people needs to be able to listen to your work and practice your work, which we're going to get into the 4 characteristics very soon.
No, I appreciate that. For me, it was an aha moment when I discovered emotional intelligence in its origin. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah.
I just heard the term and I thought it was a dope saying. I was like, oh, this is interesting. But when I started reading about it, it had a long history, but there was no cultural representation.
Oh, yes.
So, and this was back in 2014.
And did you hear I said all those names and there was nobody else?
No, right, of color,
Yes.
right. And so that was the first thing that stuck out to me. But then I just started looking to the left and the right, and I'm just asking people, had they heard of the term emotional intelligence? And nobody had really heard of it. And if they did, they couldn't explain it. So then I went down a rabbit hole of research and just seeing what it was. And I was like, oh, this must be for me. It must be. I tell people I didn't choose it, it chose me. But the why, like, Like, I feel like the communities are safer because I choose to practice civility intelligence, and my influence have other people. I just got a text this morning from a good friend of mine who is having a conversation with his wife, and he takes a purposeful pause. And she's waiting for him to say something. And she's like, you don't hear me? And he was like, I'm taking a purposeful pause. And so now she's like, well, what is that? And now they're having a conversation about a strategy. So now they're not arguing. There's no tension about whatever it was. He took a purposeful pause for a reason. He didn't tell me why, but he took it for a reason. But the fact that now they had a healthy conversation because there was a simple insert of language that allowed him to gather his thoughts and pique curiosity with her. So I feel like to build stronger relationships and make things more fluent, we all should be adopting. What I've developed is called the 11 self-operating principles.
Okay.
So I have 11 self-operating principles that I'm willing to bet, and I'm a gambling man, right? That you practice these every single day. I'm not gonna say it's impossible, but it's so hard. It would be so challenging for you to overreact, not be able to resolve conflict by practicing these, right? These 11 self-operating principles. And so the push for us with civility is to get people to commit to these principles, practice them. You can use all 11, you can pick 2 or 3, you can pick your favorite one, but it's something that's just your go-to.
Yes.
When conflict arises, so that you don't escalate it, that you neutralize it.
And are you okay sharing some or all of those principles?
Well, I just shared 2, which is self-awareness and the purposeful pause. Actually, I shared 3, the internal software, right? And so that's the cadence in which we talk about now. There's 8 more. I wouldn't want to give them all the goodies away on the show, but the ones I just shared are very powerful.
Yes.
And there's also 11 behaviors of disrespect that we've also kind of masterfully put together for people to watch out for. A couple of those are, I just had a training this morning, and there's someone about to leave their job because of this one behavior, which is dismissiveness, right? Being dismissed. When people are dismissive of you. Yeah. This person feels unseen and dismissed because of the work that she does, and they're acknowledging somebody else. Therefore, she doesn't think that they feel value to her. Yeah. So now she's ready to leave. Yeah. Right. So that's how powerful. And so these behaviors are rudeness, dismissiveness, ignoring people, right? Pettiness, gossiping. I just read an article where LAPD had to pay out $4 million. You can Google it, last year, for allowing gossiping to run rapid in their department. It was about a captain, right? So a high-ranking officer, someone made an AI photo of her in the nude. So even though it wasn't even her, they was talking about it as if it was her, and nobody addressed the issue. So it got so bad that she ended up filing a lawsuit and getting awarded $4 million. Wow. And so these behaviors need to be also recognized so people can do something about it. Again, you got to be able to name it so you can navigate it.
Absolutely. And just to add on to gossiping, I know in the work that I do, I recently took a training, and it really highlights gossiping as one of the factors that can kill a environment where somebody is trying to heal emotionally if they're struggling with their mental health. And I found that really interesting because if we look into our society today, one of the biggest things that's killing our society is gossiping. Even though many people sit on the internet and think that they are putting out news, in my perspective, I think that is a form of gossiping. And to be able to see how that actually interrupt or disrupt our mental health, and also disrupt somebody else's mental health that is going through a challenging time. It was interesting to see that, how gossiping, how dangerous it could be actually.
Yeah. And it's so dangerous. Again, the reason why it's classified as something that's hidden in plain sight? Because most people grew up gossiping,
Mm. Yeah,
right?
I'm
Right?
guilty. Yeah,
People,
yeah.
you hear something about someone and you go to somebody you like, don't say nothing. Keeps it
Mm-hmm.
between you and me, keeps it between us,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
that's the first indication that you shouldn't be talking about it in the first place. And so I initiate it, you receive it, you don't stop me.
Mm-hmm.
Then you hear what I say, and it's so good
Yeah.
that now you got to go tell somebody else, and nobody's taking into consideration the character damage or how the person would feel. And then what happens when you hear, if you ever heard a rumor about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you have to process that as well. And so without being able to have a full understanding exactly what gossiping is,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't perpetuate it, but also when it comes your way, you don't give it any meaning.
Yeah.
So there's two parts to it. Why understanding that it is a behavior of disrespect, it's hidden in plain sight, and you need civility intelligence to neutralize it. Because if you don't know what to do, you will be in a vicious cycle, right? You see a vicious loop happening, and I like to say that you will find yourself walking around life like a big screen TV, and everybody else got the remote, and they just change your channel anytime they feel like it with just words.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important for us. And I want to just go back to the question, because I think if you asked me the question, I answered it, but I want to bring it back to the top because it's important for your viewers when you say the how.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The how is literally making yourself aware that these things are real. Just like you said, I didn't know gossiping had this type of impact. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to make sure that we don't take it lightly, right? And so the internal software beliefs, the values, life experience. If I have a belief that we've been talking mess about people our whole life, that's an old belief.
Mm-hmm.
It's a limited belief. But until I change my thoughts around that belief, it's something I can continue to do freely. So that's what we mean by the work. We have to go back and update. We have old beliefs, outdated values, past life experiences. If you were somebody who talked mess and gossip when you were in high school, and you have to realize that today at 40, 50, however old you are, you're not the same person. It doesn't have the same impact. It has a bigger impact, and you should want to do something about that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Self Reflection Podcast. I want to thank you all for continuing to support our show. Also, I want to thank everyone that has subscribed to Self Reflection Podcast. I want to remind you, if you have yet to subscribe, please go ahead and hit that subscription button so we can continue to grow our platform here, and message like this could find a wider audience as well. We want to continue to grow our community. So thank you guys again for joining us on Self Reflection Podcast. We're going to get back into our conversation. We are talking to D.B. Bedford. D.B. has done incredible work. You have worked all over the United States, right? You have worked with some renowned names as well. I want to read this back of this book real quick here.
Okay.
D.B. Bedford is no stranger to the challenges of managing emotions. He was born and raised in Oakland, California, a city that is rich in culture and diversity, but has been identified year after year as one of the most dangerous cities in America. And when I read this part of this book, which is the outside, right, of the book, and I came to that line, it wasn't shocking, but at the same time, to see someone that grew up in Oakland, and you were able to put this on the book, why would you, I guess, like, what was the thought process of you actually saying Oakland has been recognized as one of the most dangerous cities in America?
Because I want the reader to know that the work that I'm talking about allowed me to survive in an environment that this is not, in today's time, we refer to it as Chat GPT work, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted people to know that this wasn't just scholar work. This was derived in an environment where technically, by all accounts, I shouldn't even be here,
Mm.
because I participated in that violence. So I seen the data, believed the data, because I was the data.
That's powerful. And I just want to pause it because you were in that space and you got out. And how do a Black boy that is in that space right now, how can they get out as well if they don't even think that they can? Because I've met people in Oakland that has never been to San Jose or the next city.
Yeah, it comes in. There's no magic formula. I can tell you that. There's no one masterful magic formula. It's going to be a combination of things. I would say the first thing that has to done, one has to listen and realize that they don't have it all figured out. That would be the first thing that will hold them back and keep them stagnated. The second thing is the most important thing I think we have to do, and we hear it, but you don't really take it in till you get older. Like, you have to have an unwavering belief in yourself. And it can't be based on validation. And so, and I don't know when it comes to you, I don't have that answer, but it will, because we all serve a purpose. We all have been given a gift. Some of us will unwrap it in time. Some of us will never unwrap it. But we all serve a purpose, and whatever that might be for them. So I would encourage a young person or a parent of a young person who's watching this to try to pay attention to what is the thing that he or she naturally gravitates to, that they do with ease, and everybody goes, "You're good at that." Like, you call them to, "Hey, can you come help me put this together?" Well, you might not realize they have this keen sense of how to see things that are all broken apart and put them together, which may be their gift. That's not my gift. Like, if I open up a IKEA box or a furniture thing, I got to call my brother. That's my brother's gift. My brother don't need instructions. He can pull something out, pop, 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 whip it together. Me, I'm paralyzed. But conversely, my brother can't stand in front of 1,000 people and speak. But I do it. I look forward to it. I jump out the bed. If I got a speaking engagement, I am jumping out the bed like, "Let's go." And there's so many people who's like, eh. So understanding what you've been called to do is probably the best thing someone can do at the earliest stage of their life, is be still and quiet enough, have enough self-reflection, right, to get a feel for what you are here and called to do, and everything else will open up from there.
Absolutely. And I'm going to dive into your book a little bit. With one of the first quotes that you have in this book, it said, "Never let emotions overpower your intelligence." And why did you put this quote in here? And how important is it for us to be able to stay grounded when we are emotionally triggered?
So I put that in there because after speaking or asking thousands of people that exact same question, and I'll do this, it's called a qualifier question when I'm in a training. I'll go, "Has anybody in here ever let their emotions overpower their intelligence?" And that's what happens. Hands go up.
Yeah.
Of course. So to me, that's a problem, right? That we should address. Because when we go further and like, so what happened? And then people start reflecting of how the decision that they made, because the statement itself or the question, if it's formed, "Have you let your emotions overpower your intelligence?" It's simply saying, have you let your strong feeling for something dictate the thing that you're supposed to do? You're supposed to set it this way, but you said it that way. You should have went this way, but you went that way. You should have stopped talking, but you kept talking. Whatever the case was, you complicated the situation because you had such a strong feeling. So again, as we talked about in the beginning, if we're bringing it back to the culture, I don't get to overreact without really risk at a serious cost, right? If I overreact, I talk about. I have so many stories. I remember I got kicked off a plane. Southwest flight. The flight is on the tarmac. They're ready to take off, and I don't think I overreact. I just told the flight attendant. Basically, we had got on the plane. I was very tired. I put my seat back, put my hoodie on. It's time to take off. You know how they come around and go, you put your table trays up and the seats up.
Yeah.
He comes around, he taps my seat. I hit the button, the seat comes up, I go back to sleep, but it's not all the way up. That agitated him, I guess, because when he comes back around, he slaps my seat. Pop, pop, pop. I say, put your seat up. So now I wake up like, man, I am not 100% EI at this time. So I'm like, I have some choice words like keep your, think about somebody starting you slapping your seat. So you can imagine my response. And then I just went back to sleep. He goes up to the cockpit, says whatever. They turned the plane around and escort me off and told me I couldn't get back. Told me if I didn't be quiet, I would be on the no-fly zone, no-fly list. And if I don't stop talking, and then I could not, I had to wait till the last flight. This was a morning flight. They put me on the last flight of the night to get out of there. All because, and this is the thing about that, and I don't feel like I was wrong. I was responding, right? But in their mind, it was overreacting.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we got to walk around here on eggshells and be timid and get pushed over. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying we got to be mindful, about what energy comes up off of us and how other people perceive it. And you gotta play chess, not checkers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you gotta have a nugget drop, a principle. You gotta have what we call situational awareness, right? Which is another study in civility intelligence. You just gotta know when to engage and when not to engage. Sometimes you can reply in a moment. Sometimes you have to reply later. Sometimes you don't reply at all. And we frame that as just being careful, not like don't bite the hook, and so, yeah, that's why I put that in there. It's a long response to a short question, but that's why it's in it.
Yeah, and that takes the emotional intelligence piece that you're talking about, being able to understand that, your emotions. And, we're going to get into this book a little bit more. I want to ask, what is one of the conversations that you had with somebody in this book that stuck with you, either change your perception of something or change how you look at something else, or just gave you a different insight?
That's a good question. That's about 3 books ago that I authored. So let me go back and think about that. Probably the conversation with Dr. Nicole Barnett, because we were talking about the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And her being in the healthcare field. I believe we had different takes on it. But the way she educated me on the pandemic and the virus, the coronavirus, not that I still agreed, but I received it because it felt like it was coming from my auntie. So the takeaway is that why it's important to have these cultural conversations, because where I was at total opposition, after our conversation, I was willing to explore the conversation more. Whatever my opinion was about the vaccine, she actually opened up my perspective on it and made me willing not to try to stand on my position and be more open.
Yes.
Because she, as a Black woman in this field, she's seen a lot more stuff than I'm seeing. And so she was able to give me some insight, and I could receive it for her, like I said. It's something about speaking within the culture when we have that that endearment for each other. We embrace each other with the type of love that you can give me the hard conversation, and now I'm open to it. So Absolutely. That would be one of the takeaways. There's a few now that I'm thinking about the book, but yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be our last question for this, and we're going to hop into the 4 characteristics that you talked about. This quote says, you make decisions through your beliefs, thoughts, things that you value, and through the things that you have happened to you in the past. Could you elaborate on this idea a little bit more? Um, Looking at the changes that you have done for yourself.
So that is in alignment with the internal software conversation we were talking about.
Yes.
Just reiterating that all of your decisions, your engagement, your processing is being ran through what you believe, right? What you value and what you've experienced.
Correct.
And so that quote is just to remind people that that is how things are done. I think it's important to realize that we do process all the information that comes our way. And I don't think we give enough attention to that and how we process it and where do the things even come from. We all have what we call emotional biases. And I try to help people understand, like when you think about the only time you ever get bothered or upset with someone is because your inner roommate, I call it your inner roommate, your inner conscious, the voice in your head, looks over at the person and go, now, why did you just say that? Right? Why did you move that over there? Why are you doing that thing there? What you're actually saying is that that's not what you would do. If it was up to you, he wouldn't be typing. The chair wouldn't be there. You wouldn't use that language. So you start projecting. It's called projection bias. You project out how you believe this moment or conversation should be. And what happens is that when it gets rejected, it creates internal conflict, right? And so a lot of people don't understand that process. And then they go to get emotionally charged, and then they start behaving, engaging from that space. So the power of civility intelligence is understanding how to stand in that gap between your positive mind state when the moment you were feeling good,
yes,
until that thing happened that's trying to emotionally hijack you. How do you take a stance in there and use the skills to process so that you don't get emotionally hijacked for the day?
Nice. Thank you. And we're going to dive into his other book. It's a little bit small. This is the older one, correct?
That's the older version.
And actually, I was supposed to bring some cards with me, but I brought one card. So we are going to just look through the book. I wanted you to talk about the 4 characteristics of our behaviors. Maybe you could just give us a little summary of each one of them.
For sure. So what you're looking at is rooted in research called temperament theory.
Okay.
It goes back into the 1900s. It's not a brand new concept. It's actually relatively seasoned, where we talk about personality styles.
Okay.
So we've taken that model and adopted it into what we call civility styles, which is basically your method or your preferred method of communication. It's like I describe it as a basket of characteristics that might be more important to you, that may not be so important to me, but understanding that they exist. So there's 4 civility styles, and we use colors to identify them. So we use gold, green, blue, and orange.
Okay.
And the workbook that you're holding, it's basically flagged. That's the older title.
Yes.
But and people can only get it in a training anyway. So, but the each section is color coded so that when we talk about these characteristics, you can have an easy reference to them. But so gold, blue, green, and orange. So gold, that person is usually focused on detail, planning, organizing, processes. That's how they see the world. Whenever something comes their way, they're thinking about the plan, right? The how, right? The details involved. The blue person thinks people first. So they're more in tune with the emotions, right? The feelings of others, the experience that's being created for others because they care about people first. That's just higher on their priority list.
Would you say they're more emotionally aware?
I would not say that.
Okay.
I would say that emotions are more important to them.
Okay.
Right. So green, right, is your analytical, more independent, more logical thinking individual.
Mhm.
Your green wants to know the why behind everything. They're more of the researcher of the bunch.
Yeah.
Right. A green is less interested in how you feel more than a blue is more interested. A green is more interested. If you tell a green something, they're more interested in the facts behind it, the logic around it,
Mhm.
where blue is more focused around the care around it. The gold is more focused on the how, right, around it. And the orange is the more spontaneous, risk taker. We like to call them the life of the party, right? The orange wants to make the fun, the humor, the lightness out of a situation. And so all four of these characteristics exist. We help people understand which color they're most closely associated with, but we also have them rank them because we all harness each one of these, but some of them are more than others. I'm an orange all day.
Yeah.
That's why we're sitting on an orange couch. Just happen to be, no. But I'm orange, followed by blue, then gold, then green. What does that mean? Big entrepreneur, take risk, always ideas. I'm the big idea person, creativity. I'm in that space all day, every day. My blue is why I do the movements, why there's a Be Civil movement, because I care about people. Gold is my third, it ranks down lower. I have to have it, but it's my least favorite, right? So gold, like I have to pick a gold day, like to do all my bills and invoicing. It's not my favorite thing to do. I have to harness that energy. But someone who is gold are doing that work along the way, right? They can't sleep unless that's done. Where for me, it's like, I'll get to it all at once. And my green, I don't overthink anything. I don't need to know what's behind something to make it happen. I don't need all the facts. If I get an idea, I'm going for it. I don't have to do all the research. I'm going to do some research to validate it, but a green has to go deep research and cross-reference before they feel like it's okay to do it. So if I had to sum it up, I know there's a lot of airtime on that, but I think it's relatively important. If I was to tell a group of individuals, listen, you guys, we're about to go from here to there. Well, the goals would be like, well, how are we getting there? How many people going? How long does it take to get there, right? The blue would start checking around and be like, oh, you heard we're going from here to there. Are you going, right? He would ask Alex, you're not going? Why you not going, right? Blue, that's what blue care about.
Yeah.
The green is like, why are we going there, right? Who told you we're going over there, right? Alex is like, that's me, right? And the orange is like, I'll meet you there. Right? So what we try to do is just raise awareness. Again, all of this is about awareness, right? Because again, the more aware you are, the more connected you can be to it. And we just try to help people understand. We don't want to box you into your civility color. We want you to know which one you resonate with the most, but we want you to master all four of them so you can improve your communication because you understand that these exist. If this research has been going since the early 1900s, that means that it's real.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to over 10,000 people, and nobody has ever said none of it applies to them. So with that just bit of information, to me, it just makes sense. And as a behavioral strategist, I'm just trying to get more people to pay attention to our adult behavior because it is the not paying attention to it and ignoring it is what's really causing all of these problems.
Yeah. And I have a question. Why is it important for a person to know which one they're most dominant in? And how does that impact the trajectory of their own personal development and growth?
So you can know how you're showing up. In my previous marriage, right, me and my ex-wife, before I knew about these characteristics, when I discovered them, I remember going home and having a conversation with her about it. And I bring this up because I'm orange and she's gold. She's a solid gold.
Mm.
And so I bring it up as an example because what I realized in that moment and what she realized, she probably never really would have gotten married to someone with such a strong orange personality, not because she didn't have love for me, because her own nervous system could not tolerate, watch this, the type of decisions that an orange makes time and time again. And because I didn't know I was orange, I'm just freely making them.
Yeah.
So it could be little stuff. She might say, "What time you coming home tonight?" I'm like, "I don't know, 7." I might get home at 9. To me, as an orange, no big deal.
Mm.
To her, she's like,
Mm.
at 7, she starts preparing the house for 7. So every time I'm breaking that promise, I'm straining the relationship, right? And so I think it's important for us to know where we're coming from because your relationships around you are being impacted. So at least you can be responsible
Mhm.
with these characteristics, and then you can start recognizing characteristics of others. And then to the example I used earlier, when our beliefs and values and experiences are aligned, we get along a lot better.
Yeah.
But if I speak to you in the color that you most associated with, we will also increase our chance of getting along because, we're not playing, we're no longer doing the golden rule, right? Treat people how you want to be treated,
Mhm.
right? Because I don't know how you treat yourself, right? It's the platinum rule. We got to treat people how they want to be treated. So understanding this gives you an edge, right? So that you can communicate to people in a way that they receive information back.
Correct. And I know you work with organizations, individual couples as well. And as we talk about relationship a little bit here, um, I guess like when entering a relationship with a person, or if somebody is listening to this and they're in a relationship, should this be something that they should both do as a couple or individually?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to talk about my current situation, right? My current marriage. My wife and I, we both knew about this. And so we
Mm.
understood, we took the assessments together so we can know what our colors are, so you can decide, right, what that means. And so for her, she thinks she's blue, green. I think she's more green, blue. We have but I think those colors for her are relatively close together. When you
Mhm.
do the assessment, there's a number ranking that tells you how close you are. And reason being, my wife has a lot of questions and she cares a lot,
Mhm.
which can be an agitation for orange who doesn't like a lot of questions and doesn't care about a lot, like all that type of stuff. So what I'm saying is that yes, because we have less friction, because I understand
Yeah.
that when she's asking me a question, she's not just trying to get on my nerves. She's just wired
Genuinely.
for questions.
Yeah.
When she is constantly saying, "You okay? You good, babe? You want this? You want that?" Even if I feel agitated because I just maybe just want to chill, it's her caring essence that's just like who she is. So and then when I'm starting the next business or decide I'm gonna write a book 2 months ago and I'm already starting new campaigns, or I decide that I'm going to start working so many more hours, or I'm gonna spontaneously sign up for this conference, she also understands that that's the orange in me.
Yeah.
And we find a happy medium. So it's super important for people to at least consider learning about how we are wired, because so many people come together in relationships, and after the fun and the lust is gone, right? Then what do we have? We have our true beings. And so I have to get to know you and be able to decide if that's the natural tendencies and characteristics that you have.
Mhm.
I have to decide, is that something that I want to live with, or I want to work with, and you have to do the same.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people fall out of their situation because they don't take that into consideration.
I agree. Thank you again so much for joining us on Self Reflection Podcast. As we begin to wrap our conversation here, I want to bring us to something that is happening in society today. if anyone else is watching out there, right, this is something that has been in media a lot lately with the Carmelo Anthony situation, where this young man was 17 when he stabbed another student from a different school. And as we talk about emotional intelligence, emotional civility, right, I want to ask you, with the type of sentence that he received, we somewhat had a conversation off camera, but from your perspective, do you believe that this was racially charged with the sentence that he received? And also, when it comes down to understanding emotions and being able to manage your emotions in that moment, um, how much of a generational trauma carries on into how us colored people show up, especially Black people?
Yeah. So even like I mentioned to you outside, to me the easy answer is, of course, race is involved.
Hmm.
Racism exists in America. I don't know why we keep acting like it doesn't. It's just that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know the kid's family. I don't know what he's been through, but I do know generational trauma is passed down.
Yeah.
What does that look like? It looks like the behaviors and values and beliefs that are modeled or verbalized to our younger generation that they pick up and they start to adapt. Um, I didn't, when you asked me about it, I had told you I didn't take a dive into it. And it's not because any other reason that I am someone that I minimize or avoid consuming negativity on social media.
Absolutely.
Like if you were to pick up my phone and look at my timeline, it is podcasts, it is motivational, it's things that are relevant to what I am doing. I want my algorithm on the internet and in my real life to align with where I want to be and what I'm trying to see. And sometimes I know it can be offensive to people because they want you to care,
Yeah.
but that's for them to do and not me. So not that I don't care, I just didn't tune in because I worked in probation, juvenile probation for 17 years. I've seen several young people, get sentenced for many moons, right, for things where others didn't. Like I told you outside, I could see a Black and brown kid come in, get sentenced to the youth authority. I could see a white kid come in and get sent to his auntie house in Colorado instead. It's just, the way it is. Now, there's always other factors that people can factor in, but I definitely believe race plays into, and they were doing some comparison when you asked me, I went and looked about the guy who's the white kid running down the street with the big gun.
Yeah.
They was showing, all these different comparisons. And so, but we know this system is rigged. You know what I'm saying? Look who our president is. President Obama could not get away. President Obama couldn't even wear a tan suit, right? Without facing impeachment. But with Trump, he does whatever, says whatever. And so we know we live in two Americas. That's, now what can we do about it?
Yeah.
We could be honest about it and know it. We should work on coming together collectively and leveraging our resources amongst each other. We spend a lot of money in this country on things outside of our own culture. I mean, that's where it can start. It can start with our own self-discipline, our self-awareness. And when we see each other, one of the things I talk about in the book, Black Intelligence, I talk about why is it when we see each other, why is it not love first? Why do we look each other up and down first, especially as men, right? Why do we feel a threat instead of looking at each other and be like, right, automatically, I got to know anything about you. And so we have to really work on the mindset of the programming that's been downloaded into us to make it better for us as a community.
Yeah. And some final reflection words for young Black men, especially those that live in America, from you.
I would say double down on learning a high income skill, because the only thing that's going to really help keep you safer is getting your money up, right? And people don't like to talk about it, but a lot of things, a lot of my exposure minimized when I started doing better for myself.
Mm.
I meet different people. I'm in different rules. You know, living in Oakland, right? Food desert, liquor stores, no grocery stores. I can get all the alcohol, all the guns I want. Can't get a fresh apple, right? You know, and you gotta level up. You know, you gotta level up. You gotta be able to see what it feels like not to be under so much duress and stress all the time. And then you can decide at what level you want to reach back, because you can reach back in so many ways to pull people up to you. But you gotta get your value up. You gotta, when I mean value, mean like your ability to earn
Mm-hmm.
and invest, so you can leverage and you can neutralize a lot of these problems with this capitalist society. Because if you're gonna stay here, you might as well play the game, right?
Yeah.
So that would be, to me, like, double down, build a skill, build something that's undeniable where you can earn your income, so you can free yourself from the small radius that a lot of us are trapped into. And if you are already above that level, right? Because of course, all Black people are not poor and economically strained.
Yeah.
At that level, we also got to remember that we still are all the same, right? So
Talk
if you
about it.
grew up in Bel Air, you know what I'm saying, you're still a Black person, you're still a brown person, and you're fine as long as you stay in Bel Air. But you have to go through Compton because you got to go pick up your auntie from the airport and get pulled over. You will get treated the same. And so, not to just, we should not look at each other, no matter what status we're on. We should look at each other as a collective, right, and see what we can do to help each other. And I think if we stay in that mindset, we can mobilize. Because even right now with this temporary rage, right, with this young man, right, we see it all the time. Just like George Floyd.
Yeah.
No one even talk about him anymore until the Kevin Hart roast. But other than that, like, what happened to all the outrage? And so that's the emotional piece, right? We get really emotional when we start doing all this stuff, but we're not being logical. Even when we got each other attention, we're not saying, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. Let's start being at this level. Let's bring back Black Panther type mentality, you know what I mean, for each other. And we don't. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Right, to keep seeing it. So I see why, some of us, including myself, just kind of try to create our own movements, right? And I don't mind partnering, but I'm not being distracted by other people's initiative, because I believe I'm doing God's work in my own lane by, being the one, the giver of this gift to influence people to practice civility intelligence.
Absolutely. I agree. And I also do think that as you were speaking, it kind of came to me, it's like, what if a kid is there like, there's no way out for me? And they're in that survival mentality where they feel like there's no way out.
We have countless stories of people who, most of the millionaires in our community got it out the mud, like they say. There are people with disabilities, right, who become super successful, couldn't read, or got one arm or one leg, or right. So I would say they have to work on that limited belief, right? Everything's here for the taking. You know what I'm saying? You have to. That's why I said earlier, you got to believe in yourself. And now more than ever, because you have access to information. Information is cheap now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You just got to get online. I mean, you can spend, in 48 hours, you can become a master at anything. Where before you had to take the long way. You had to slow walk it through school, through big textbook, you know what I mean, get it spoon fed to you. Now you can go on to you can go to YouTube University and learn anything. So I would, if a parent is listening to this and they're thinking about their kid and they're like, but my guy just doesn't see it, whatever, you have to work on the limited belief, right? That's because you will never outperform the limited beliefs that you have about yourself. And I will tell you this with every molecule in my body. If you fight for your limited beliefs, you get to keep them.
Mm. Mic drop. Thank you guys so much for joining me on Self Reflection Podcast. I hope that this conversation was helpful to somebody out there. Also, if you found this conversation insightful, helpful to you, please go ahead and share it with somebody else in your social group, right? The goal about Self Reflection Podcast is to put healthy messages out there in our community and continue to build that emotional intelligence for all of us so that we can continue to grow as a community, especially for us in the Black and Brown community, and also for us to continue to learn about our own selves, right? I think that's one of the things that we talked about a lot in this conversation is being able to be aware of who you are and understanding your mood, understanding the situations that you're in so that you can better manage the conversations that you're in and better manage your emotional reactions as well. Again, thank you so much, DB, for joining me on Self Reflection Podcast. And as we close off, since we talk about emotional intelligence and Black intelligence as well, right? Final words from anyone else that is listening based on the work that you're doing.
I would just say if you are, my work is primarily in work environments. And so if you are in a work environment and you can feel the toxic environment, the behaviors that we were talking about,
Mhm.
and you would like your organization to do something about it, I would say take what we call Civility Index. And it's a free assessment that you can measure the emotional climate that you're stepping in every single day and allow us to come in and help you be more productive in your work environments.
Yeah. Thank you. Also, guys, you can purchase this book. Where can they grab it?
Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yes. So get your copy on Amazon as well. Also, maybe drop some reviews after reading the book. I'm still about to get into it, kind of skim through it. But get your copy, drop some reviews, let him know. Maybe you can bring up a second version after this. We get some reviews.
Yep, and I love that. So just as a reminder, that's a couple of books ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the new book, right? Get that book too.
Be
right?
civil.
Right, is called 11 Behaviors of Disrespect Hidden in Plain Sight. That will be that by the time this airs, it'll be released. But that would be the book that I would push people to first.
Okay.
Right, because that's the most recent.
Yes.
But then you can just pick up a library of stuff, And so, but I love that book right there, no question about it. But if you want to be up to date, my latest work would be that right there, 11 Behaviors of Disrespect Hidden in Plain Sight.
11 Behavior of Disrespect Hidden in Plain Sight. That's available on Amazon as well. And also, we're going to tag him in the description part of this podcast and some of the books and that specific book that he just mentioned in the description part of this podcast if you are interested to grabbing a copy. Thank you guys again so much for joining me on Self Reflection Podcast. As we close off, I want to ask you if you have yet to subscribe to Self Reflection Podcast, please go ahead and hit that subscription button. I greatly appreciate it. And also for all those that have subscribed to Self Reflection Podcast, I genuinely appreciate you for being part of this community, for supporting Self Reflection Podcast, and for continuing to encourage me to go on this journey. I think that this is a work that we are all doing as a collective. So thank you guys again for being part of the Self Reflection Podcast family. In this moment, I want to do a last reflection question for you so that our guests out there or our family out there can hit a reflection moment. What is one reflection that you can propose to us today so that we can ponder on as we head out?
So since it's on the self-reflection podcast, I'll think about self that I'll share with your audience. And one self-reflection moment is that I am enough and it's okay for me to be overconfident in the work that I do.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to pop my collar. Stand in my gift. And when I walk into a room, people need to know that I'm there unapologetically. So that's my own self-reflection. But I would share that outwardly for one, if they're having any doubts, no matter where they are and what they're doing, just know you belong there, right? And you should stand in it, and get away from that word. I'm just being humble, right? What's understood don't need to be explained, right? Don't be the person that's always like, I'm just humble. I'm trying to get away from that because I think it holds us back. It's like stand in our truth, stand in your gift, and make it happen.
I love that. Thank you. And I'm definitely receiving that for myself as well.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
thank you. Thank you guys again. I hope that you guys have a phenomenal day. Take care of yourself, love yourself, be kind, and be gentle with yourself. Until next time, you're listening to Self Reflection Podcast. And this is your girl, Lira. Ta da!